let's get to the Amanda Ungaro thing.
Yeah.
So again, I referenced this at the beginning, but if you see jump cuts, that's because there's something that, in reviewing this with Amanda, she wants to keep off record. But
hey guys, just as a quick note, I was able to get everything I'm about to say cleared by Amanda herself, and she also was nice enough to send over some of the screenshots pertaining to at least some of the things I'm talking about. So I'm going to go check that out on the edit right now. And whatever's relevant to things I said, when you hear a whoosh sound, that means it went on the screen and you can see some sort of document or email right there.
like I said, I really needed 3-4 hours with her. I got an hour so I could get an outline. But right off the bat, what I'll say is there were things that she said that were the direct opposite of what she would be incentivized to say. As an example, and I'll get to the details of this in a minute, she said that she and Paolo, in all the years she was with and without him, there was like a 3-year gap in there at one point, for example. It was roughly 20 years. They never talked about Epstein. Ever. And like she's incentivized to be like, oh, he talked about him all the time. And, I knew everything they were doing. We know that Paolo Zampolli, according to evidence, was looking to buy a modeling agency with Jeffrey Epstein as a partner. I forget which one. Maybe it was a lead. I don't remember. In like 2004. Like he's in business with the guy and everything. And yet Amanda's saying, nope, didn't really talk about it. So I took like some bullet point notes of like things that can come on the record because, like I said, at the end of the conversation, I said, okay, here's what I think we could talk about. Let me know what you think of that. And she's like, yes, absolutely. Go through this, this, and this. And then there were a couple things that was like, all right, that would be best to not talk about that right now. But essentially, Amanda was modeling in Milan by age 13. Now, I didn't get to really dig deeper on this, but she doesn't make any claims that anything ever happened to her. I would describe her as a very tough woman, for sure. She's definitely, I would not want to get on her bad side. I do want to throw that out there, definitely. But, she was modeling at a young age. She was from Brazil, ends up in Milan at 13. She's living in Paris at like 15, 16, right to when she's 17. Modeling, and I believe she was working for Jean-Luc Brunel at his modeling agency. Some of that was like a little unclear, but the way she ended up in the United States is at age 17 in, I believe, 2001. She got on the Lolita Express with Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Jean-Luc Brunel, and 30 other girls. That's how she got to New York. And she claims nothing happened to her on that flight, but she said, these girls were very comfortable, like as if they had been in that environment before, and that Epstein and Maxwell and Brunel, this was like very normal for them, and there'd be girls sitting on the lap of Epstein and stuff, and she thought some of it was a little weird. But what was odd was when she went to get off the plane in the U.S., Jean-Luc Brunel threw her and Jean-Luc Brunel, by the way, is the guy who definitely unalived himself. That's what the government told me, so I'm going to choose to believe them. President's Day weekend 2022 in his, I believe, Parisian jail cell.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was nothing more there. But anyway, he was Jeffrey Epstein's longtime buddy and a major modeling scout and executive in Europe who is also alleged to have been central to the trafficking operation on that side of the map as it pertains to Epstein and his orbit, if you will. But Jean-Luc Brunel threw Amanda Ungaro a plastic like circular baggie, she said, that contained a lot of drugs. She knew right away it was drugs. She threw it back and said, no, you take this shit. I like her accents.
Yeah,
It's like the way she explains things is very entertaining. But she threw it back to him and she left. And she never saw Ghislaine Maxwell or Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not sure about Brunel, but Epstein and Maxwell, she never saw them again. I don't know if she ever saw Epstein again, but she never saw Maxwell again until around 2014. I'll get to that point in the story when Amanda started doing some stuff with the UN, and she ran into Maxwell as it pertains to her fucking Prestige Worldwide, very fake organization called Terramar, trying to save the world's oceans or whatever the fuck they were doing. I'll get to that. But again, she would be incentivized, in my opinion, to say, oh, I was hanging out with them all the time. Paolo talked about them with me all the time. I saw them all the time. We all knew what they were doing. Mm-hmm. She's incentivized to do that because she definitely hates her ex, Paolo Zampolli. I understand that. And, you know, she's also sitting in Brazil right now, not in America, with her son as a result of, I'll get to that part of the story, Paolo getting her just pushed out of this country. And I think what amounts to forms of blackmail. Those are the claims. This is pure spec. These are alleged, Your Honor. This is just allegations from someone that I am reporting secondhand. Yeah. I don't know. Paolo Zampolli might be a great guy, but it's possible. Alleged. We got to cover the bases here, Joey.
No, it's good biz.
It's how it is. So Amanda says that she met Paolo in Brazil when she was 15. Okay, so this would have been when she was signed to, I forget which modeling company, maybe it was ID at that point, but one of the modeling companies. And right before she went to live in Paris for a year or two. That's interesting because Paolo Zampolli would have been, by my math, around 29 years old at that time. Meaning a 15-year-old. We all know how dirty the modeling business has apparently been in the past and probably still is in some ways, hopefully not nearly as bad as it clearly used to be, where what I mean by that is they be recruiting girls when they're 12, 13 because they're like, oh, she's a looker.
Yeah.
She'll be the next one, and then God knows what happens to him when that happens. So I say that because he met her when she's 15 and she's a young model. She was already a model at that point, and it hypothetically could have been a part of his job that he was meeting her. Obviously, I think it went beyond that because he ended up with her. Again, I have to be careful how I say these things, but
pure spec.
Pure spec. We're all drawing certain conclusions out there, and I think you're very reasonable to draw those conclusions, by the way.
But you don't want to dip the pen in company ink.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's it.
Are we sponsored by Red Bull now? Did I miss that?
We ought to be.
Gives you wings.
Yeah, come on, you guys.
It gives you wings. I got nothing against Red Bull. But anyway, we're not sponsored by Red Bull, to be clear.
Send the money.
So please, we really need it.
Come on.
We really do. I don't know where all these guys get the money.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, what was Barron was like, Kirk was making 25, 30 a year. What am I doing wrong?
That's the Kirk effect, though, dude. Come on.
Well, that's before the, you know.
Yeah. Big biz.
It's huge biz.
Big donors.
Huge biz. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Listen,
I drive a Honda. I like my Honda.
Listen,
though.
we tighten up this reporting on the war. And by tighten up, I mean we just flip-flop.
Oh, ignore.
And we're going to have money flying through the door.
So we're going to take that $50 million bag.
Exactly,
Andrew Tate turned down.
And we hung out with Paolo, who's a very informative man. You don't really understand.
I asked her about that, too. That's coming.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We'll get there. But anyway, so he meets Paolo Zampolli, meets Amanda, as she alleges, at age 15. She then reconnects with him. I want to say the next time she reconnected him was, in fact, in New York. I can't remember if she mentioned if she ever saw him in Paris, but I'm pretty sure it was not until she was in New York after she had gotten off the Lolita Express and was here. And the way she explains it, the timeline is that he began full-blown dating her when she was in New York, and to give the benefit of the doubt of the timeline, I would imagine it lines up with her being 18, if that does anything for anyone out there. Obviously, the whole thing's weird. He's born in 1970, and this would have been in 2002, so he's 32, she's 18. I think that's weird.
Yeah.
Couldn't be me.
Yeah.
Couldn't be me,
yeah,
Chief. But I guess that would be legal, right? So they start dating. And this is where she jumped around a bit, and I would bring it back and forth. So I'm going to stay with that too, because what she was saying kind of then gives context to things when we go back. So just bear with me on the timeline here. But again, she says that nothing ever happened to her from like as a model coming up, from like an abuse perspective in that way. She began dating Paolo. Eventually, he never married her, but eventually they had a child together, and she was living with him for until 2015-ish. And I'll get there in a second. But so that's a lot of years.
Yeah.
By the way. And the way I would describe Paolo, good friend of ours, Joey Deef, apparently. But, the way I would describe Paolo is very similar to Tony Soprano. So if you remember, Tony Soprano fucking cheated on his wife all the time. Amanda explains to me he cheated on her all the time. And yet when Carmela, spoiler alert if you haven't fucking seen The Sopranos, when Carmela went to separate from Tony and look at a divorce, he refused to let it happen. And then he even went so far as to talk with every high-powered divorce attorney in the area, so that then they had a conflict and couldn't talk with her. And the idea was he would get extremely angry at the idea of her so much as seeing another dude, even though they were separated. And of course, he was getting whatever box he wanted to get. But, it was like, only I can have you. No one else can have you. That's how Paolo treats Amanda, for sure. The difference is, and here's the difference. Tony Soprano, who was a textbook sociopath, to be clear. Tony Soprano actually loved Carmela. I actually do believe that. As much as a sociopath can feel love, I think he did. I don't get the sense Paolo Zampolli loves Amanda Ungaro or ever did. I don't know. I've never talked with Paolo Zampolli. There's not a fuck ton of him out there talking a lot over the years. There's some. We've played some of it. But I don't know that he's capable of that. And the pattern with him repeatedly is that, no, you're mine. You're with me. I won't marry you. I'll have a kid with you. I won't marry you. And I'll fuck everything else that moves. But you're mine. And you're with me. And that's it. And so that is a pattern that I think is very clearly demonstrated throughout their 23, 24-year odyssey together at that point. Paolo, when he began dating her, of course, told her that he'd make her a star, all that with modeling. He love bombed her. You heard Nadine Macaluso talk about that back in episode 302 with me. She was the Wolf of Wall Street's wife and ex-wife now. But, she talked about how, he was a raging narcissist and he would just give her a lot of gifts and give her a lot of things to make her feel like she was loved and all that. So that's similar thing happened with Amanda at the beginning. And again, she's young. Clearly to me, Amanda had to grow up quickly, way quicker than any kid should ever have to. But that also stunts a lot of development that happens as well. And at the same time, when you're 18, 19, 20, you may be less green at the world because you've seen a lot of shit in her case, but you're still 18, 19, 20. And that stuff has a psychological effect on you. But anyway, she has a child with him. As she said, she has no contact with Epstein and Maxwell during these years. And then in 2014, she begins working at the UN. And the way she describes the UN, I know it's a fucked up place. I know there's a lot of bullshit going on there. But this is just like a legalized black market of wealthy diplomats around the world to just fuck around and maybe never find out.
Yeah, checks out.
It does check out. So she had left the fashion industry, and in June 2014, Keith Mitchell, who was the prime minister of Grenada, appointed Ungaro as United Nations ambassador for youth affairs. Now, again, when you only have an hour with someone, this is a textbook example of something I'd like to know more about. What the fuck does Amanda have to do with Grenada? That's number one. Number two, I forgot Grenada was a country, and then I remembered we took it over in a day in 1984. And number 3, like, ambassador for youth affairs. What does that mean? What does that mean? What are the qualifications here? I don't know. And I'm sure Amanda would, I'm going to guess, I should say, would probably be pretty blunt about the fact that it's all bullshit, even on her end, maybe with some of the things she was doing, because she went through this whole thing about how in the UN, motherfuckers were just selling diplomatic passports for 250 grand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what does that mean? And she's like, well, it's a diplomatic passport. You can go from one place to another. And the way I took it was a bunch of these small countries that you and I have never heard of. This is where they get their juice. And they're like, we can give you a passport from our country so you can travel wherever the fuck you want. Yeah. Dominica? Never heard of it. Now you have. And that was the funny part. She was telling me about, Paolo wanted to get involved with the UN to get closer to some people, so he made up some shit about the oceans. And I'm like, yeah, what does he know about oceans? She's like, nothing! Not the damn thing! And I was like, okay, yeah. I also was unaware Dominica was a country. And I think she laughed at that. I think I said that to her. I was definitely thinking that, but I think I said that to her. And then I never got, like, what his affiliation with Dominica was, because there was none. It's just another Caribbean island. For all I know, it could have been owned by Jeffrey Epstein. Like, can we Google that just to make sure for the 50th time that that's actually a fucking country?
Who owns Dominica?
Who owns Dominica? Do I have any Dominicans out there? Not like Dominican Republics, but the other Dominicans?
It's not owned by any person.
It's not owned by a person?
It gained full independence from Great Britain.
Oh, we love that. Good for them. They fought the Redcoats and won 200 years later. Good for them. Yeah. November 3rd, 1978, and it operates as a sovereign democratic republic.
I want to see who this person is.
Head of state, President Silvani Burton. Deep's going to look into that. It's a sovereign democratic republic. Got that sovereign democratic republic fucking passports being passed around apparently too.
Yeah.
Pure spec.
That's Silvani.
So this is Silvani. This is their leader. She won in 2023. She was born in the village of Crayfish River as a member of the Kaliningo people, and holds a bachelor's degree in rural development and a master's degree in project management. All right, good for her. Great.
All right, so checks out. She's qualified.
Yeah, qualified for the job. Got a degree. Anyway, so Paolo has this affiliation. And another thing I didn't get to dig deeply on is, again, he's ambassador for the oceans. What was Ghislaine Maxwell's very fake Terramar project about? The oceans. What's going on in them oceans? What's happening down in them oceans, boy?
The aliens.
And something. We ain't know about 95% of that shit down there.
Yeah. They're just like keyed in on Atlantis. That's where all this shit's going down.
That's right. They're having a satanic ritual with a bunch of fucking... I don't even want to give the visual there.
Don't even. But we get it.
They're desecrating Atlantis. Get Randall Carlson in here. He's going to lose his fucking mind on these people. These people have no fucking idea what any of this shit is, man. I know the history, not them. Anyway. So... Oh, the other thing she threw in a shot. He was doing. Can we Google this? I didn't even Google this.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Paolo Zampolli was doing something with the tigers. She's like, all that bullshit with tigers. He just wanted to get close to Putin because he loved tigers. I'm like, that's not helping the conspiracy theories here. But all right, so entrepreneur and diplomat Paolo Zampolli is well known for featuring live tiger cubs at his lavish birthday party. I feel like that's not saving the tiger. Okay. At his lavish birthday parties as part of an eccentric effort to raise awareness for endangered wild tigers, later sparking headlines when a collection of expensive art tigers was stolen from his New York property. That's some cartel kingpin bullshit. That's something like when you go down to like the barrio that you're not allowed to go to down in fucking Mexico out in the foothills where some guy's been living for 40 years living off of cocaine revenue, just has this open air party where maybe some people, when they say the wrong thing, get shot in the back and never heard from again, where everyone's partying. There's fucking, Don Diablo's there playing. Shout out Don Diablo. He's paid a lot of money to do this, I'm sure. Pure spec. obviously never happened. But, you know, maybe Flow Ride is there. I don't know. I don't know.
Flow Ride
and they're
would be
just
there.
performing, getting the people going, a little sexy time on the dance floor.
Yeah.
And then in the middle, you have some dude in the middle of one of them cages.
Yeah.
And he's got some really, like, couple hot strippers next to him. And they're blowing, the strippers are blowing like
bubbles.
the fire through the bubble thing.
Okay.
And then next to them in the cage is like
Tigers.
like tigers roaring. And he says, we're here to save the tigers.
And then someone's like, he goes to feed the tiger. He's like, that's the last guy who steps out of line.
That's right.
You know?
It's like, you know, same way that Pablo Escobar was trying to save the hippos. That's definitely what he was doing.
Well, there was a heist involved with this, too.
Oh, no.
You see this? There was...
Give it to me, Joey D. Pause.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. The Global Tiger Fund, Zampolli commissioned artists to decorate roughly 75 ceramic and fiberglass art tigers intended to be sold to benefit wildlife conservation. In 2012, December, a brazen daylight heist occurred at his Gramercy Park area property in Manhattan.
She was living there then.
Thieves stole around 18 of the expensive ceramic and fiberglass tiger statues while neighbors watched.
While neighbors watched.
They're probably like, oh, fuck them.
They're like, you know what? You got there's 10 more in there.
They're like, oh, it could be a moving crew, and it's like clearly burglars with like shiesties on. They're like, no, he's a fucking asshole. Let them clean him out.
Also, there's a real height difference between these two too. Side note.
She's taller. That's kind of. I think that's kind of cool sometimes.
Can you Google that? I mean, it's a big difference.
Yeah.
We're not talking like 2-3 inches here. I was just thinking about.
He's like Mussolini.
Yeah, you're working with some tough geometry there. Yeah. Look at that. Yeah. Just get that first one right there.
Yeah, Getty Images.
You know, that's probably why he's trying to take over the world. He's just, you know, not tall enough. I don't know. That's what Matt Cox says. Don't shoot the messenger. My friend Matt Cox, you know, says always look out for us short people.
Yeah, he looks like a mobster.
Yeah, we got a bone there. He does look like a mobster.
Like he looks like he is like the union head for some construction union in New
jobs
Jersey.
Everywhere. Yep, 100%.
He's like, listen, you know, we're projected 12 months on the project. Fuck it, 38.
That's right.
They're like, 38 months. He's like, yeah, fuck it.
Fuck it.
These guys need jobs. We're going to give them jobs.
He's even got the Italian accent, too, because he's from there. So he could be like one of the imports.
Yeah,
I don't Furio Junta. You know?
This isn't pure spec. I don't trust him.
Yeah, that's not pure spec. I don't trust him either. But anyway, back to what Amanda was saying. So they're selling a bunch of passports for $250. Then she threw in something. I was like, you know, and she kept going. This is Zoom. I just can't. But she's like, yeah, that's why China killed that one guy for giving out a passport or something like that to him. Maybe it was like a bad passport. I don't know. But that was like a real little TMZ moment in the middle of there. They're like, oh, I guess there's some blood, guts, and gore in the UN too. Chinese man gets death. No, that's not it. It was someone at the UN from some other country, and she just very casually is like, that's why the Chinese kill him. Pure spec.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They do that.
I've heard some things, but that's, you know, that is what it is. But like I said, until she runs into Ghislaine at the UN, she had never seen her and spoken to her during that time period. The 13 years since the plane ride. And she didn't have like a close relationship with Ghislaine at the UN. She mentioned like seeing her at some of the cocktail parties and stuff like that. And it was like a casual, yes, no, you. Obviously, like she knew Paolo, knew Ghislaine pretty well. More on that in a minute. But she didn't speak about Epstein with Paolo at all, and she only spoke with Paolo about Ghislaine when she found and this is some years after that, after 2014, when she found the emails between Ghislaine and Paolo. And Paolo had said publicly, like, when she found these emails, this was after COVID. So Paolo at that point had apparently, according to Amanda, said publicly, like, oh, no, I barely knew Ghislaine, whatever. It's just, that. And then when Amanda, I'll get to that in a minute, how she got this, but when she got the emails, she saw that they were talking like, oh, where are you going in June or whatever, like talking as friends. A lot of back and forth, like about social life and things they were doing. So he was not being honest about that. But what happened was in 2015, she goes to separate from Paolo and she moves out, and they eventually come to a separation agreement in 2018. And as a part of that agreement, according to Amanda, he was going to agree to help get her green card and visa and a bunch of that stuff to basically keep her immigration status kosher here in America.
Yep.
That never happens. He doesn't get her any of that stuff. And so then COVID hits and he's calling her, begging her to come, like, at least move back in. He said that according to her, he'll give her a floor of that, very big place in Gramercy Park that he has, and he'll live on a different floor or whatever. Eventually she gives in, because she has a son with the guy too, and moves in, and she's with him. She describes herself as in a relationship with him. Again, maybe this is like 2020. So she said it got really bad in 2021 and 2022. She alleges, I want to leave that part open-ended, but she just alleges it was really bad. And that he has, I'll say, a not good personality to live with. We'll put it that way. I'll let you guys kind of fill in the blanks. And, she had mentioned that she had been to, like, some of the years get a little weird, like when she's with him, when she's not, to be frank with you. Like, we just have that one separation agreement in 2018, but, like, is it on, is it off? I'm a little unclear on all that. So I don't want to, like, give it concrete. It was definitely from this time to that time. So let me just say, between 2015 and 2023 is a very foggy time period for their relationship, but there's times when she's with him, times when she's not, and then there's agreement in the middle that he's going to help her with immigration, and he does not. So she, in 21, 22, he was banging other women. She alleges that he would have some ladies of the night over, do with that what you will, that kind of thing. And, and eventually in 2023, she leaves altogether and she moves to Miami. And as far as I can tell from what she said, she takes her son with her there. I don't know what the setup was with Paolo seeing her son, on and off during that time period, like as his father. I'm not sure. But some of the part that we're going to keep off record involves the arrest in, I believe that was May or June 2025, of her and her now husband. So she went down to Miami and she alleges she was dating someone, I won't say who it was, and Paolo sent a couple Russian guys to beat him up, broke a bunch of ribs, and she broke up with the guy because she's like, he's going to kill you. That's what she alleged. And so then she ends up dating this doctor, falls in love with this doctor, marries him. He has a clinic where he does a bunch of cosmetic stuff, and she explains some other things that he does, and I was a little unclear on it, so I don't want to go into that and get it wrong. But long story short, they get arrested. It's billed as fraud. Mm-hmm. We've reported on that on the show. I still don't know what to think of this whole thing. She did say, I'm trying to think. I'm going to leave some of her claims around that off the record as well. I'm going to be safe with that because I feel like that can get into some territory of things that she doesn't want to talk about. But essentially, she was arrested. She believes, and this part she did want me to talk about, she believes that Paolo was behind it. She had seen emails of Paolo she alleges, emailing the prosecutor in this case, pushing for these charges. And by the way, that was another thing. I don't know if this is going to be a jump cut here. Maybe it will be. Maybe it won't. I'll have Amanda look at this because I don't know if this is – I think this is on record, but I want to be careful with that. She went in 2022, 2023, something like that, and raided Paolo's office.
Yeah. I think we're going to be getting a cut here, folks. And if you're not, well, then enjoy.
Oh, what was the line she said to me? She goes, "Oh, you think you're crazy? I'll show you what crazy is."
I'll show you what crazy is. And just...
Yeah. So she does that, and that's where she finds a lot of these emails that are going back and forth in correspondence. And one of the things that she alleges is that Paolo was trying to blackmail or strong arm the Brazilian ambassador because she had gone to the Brazilian embassy and complained about abuse and sought to get help because he also wasn't getting her a green card and everything. And so he was trying to hold one over her. And so as a part of that, she also, I don't know if it was from that raid or later, but maybe it had something to do with something I won't talk about, but she alleges that she saw emails where Paolo was conferring with the prosecutor to try to bring about these charges because, again, she's now married to another doctor. No one else can have her. Only Paolo can. And so they go and throw a bunch of charges at the doctor and also at her. They throw her in jail. She describes this, I believe, as like when she was still in jail in June 2025. And this was one part, like there's a little language barrier here, obviously. Like Amanda speaks English well, but not perfectly, I'd say. And so there was one part where she had said earlier, like she was out on bail, but then later said, no, I was in jail when ICE came to get her. And when I clarified that with her, she says that ICE got her from jail while she was trying to make bail. I believe that's how she put it. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm going with. This part gets a little foggy for me. But ICE gets her, and then she's being held by ICE. And what she alleges is that in August of 2025, she reached out through an intermediary to Melania Trump for help. And Melania did not give her any help whatsoever. And so she was like, fuck this. And so in October, she's in front of the judge. And this part I have not seen reported anywhere. In fact, I don't think our reporting said this at all. At this point, again, she's been held by ICE, and I'm going to get back to where Paolo plays a role in that. But at this point, she asked the judge to deport her. And the reason was she feared for her life. There had been reports, obviously we hadn't gotten the Epstein files released yet, but there have been long-standing reports about Paolo and his ties to Epstein and this whole network and all that. And she said, I fear for my life, just deport me. This is what she told me. I don't know. Maybe some of our sleuths out there can go get court records of this. I don't even know if that exists. That's way above my pay grade. But this is what she told me. And she was then sent to Louisiana, maybe like the next day, and deported to Brazil. Paolo is alleged, and he has been publicly alleged, and there's a lot here, I think, that supports that, to have called in a favor to someone high up at ICE because Paolo has some fake Prestige Worldwide job. It's technically not fake, but to you and me, it's fake. With the White House that makes him a special envoy to some bullshit. And so he uses his connection, calls up this guy. Can we pull up that Warren letter and type in find next Zampolli? And we'll get to the paragraph where I can read this out. But he leans on this ICE guy and says, the mother of my kid is running into problems and she doesn't have a green card and whatever, and you should look at it. And that is what caused ICE to look at her case and to take her, as I understand it, into custody in the first place. So this is from a letter that Senator Elizabeth Warren, also known as Pocahontas in some circles, Joey Deef, sent to, who did she send this to? This was to the guy himself. Yeah. Yeah. To David Venturella, who is now the acting director of ICE. He was not at the time, but he was high up at ICE. When she sent this letter, he was acting director. And in the letter, she says, I'm also concerned by other reports of your behavior. You allegedly called ICE officials in Miami for a personal or political favor to detain a Brazilian woman, referring to Amanda, before she was able to post bail. That woman was the ex-wife of Paolo Zampolli, a longtime Trump associate and ally who was embroiled in a custody battle. If true, these allegations would be an inappropriate and extraordinary abuse of power. They raise profound concerns about your professional judgment and your willingness to weaponize federal immigration enforcement to assist politically connected allies of the president. Amanda says that because Paolo did this, it was a leverage play. And she also spoke to, I think it was around the time that she spoke to Melania. She spoke to Paolo as well. And Paolo, again, this is right in that Tony Soprano pattern I'm putting together. Mm-hmm. What do you think Paolo said to her? He said, all right, here's what you're going to do. He started helping her. And he said, just blame the whole thing on the doctor and he's going to go to prison. And what happens when he goes to prison? Well, now she don't have a husband. And that was her ticket out. This is what Amanda alleges. Paolo was giving her a ticket out saying, yeah, we'll take care of it and you'll be fine. And she said, her exact line was, she said, so I say no, I stay in prison. Like no hesitation, like that's what it was. And you know what? Sticking by her man. That's on some principles right there, because that was at a high risk to herself, if that allegation is true, to do that. So then it ends up with her being deported in October, and that was because she was worried that Paolo was trying to kill her. So I said I was going to bring this back on the timeline. After we went through all that, and I got some of that cleared up, again, some of it, like I said, is still foggy to me, I went back to the Epstein, Melania Trump alleged connection here, which is what brought Amanda Ungaro into the spotlight in April. So Amanda had started tweeting things publicly, making some claims about, I'm paraphrasing, knowing where the bodies are buried, went viral on Twitter.
Yep.
She was talking directly to Melania. Then Melania comes out and gives that 6-minute speech, which we covered here on this show, where she goes, I am here to support the victims. They need to be heard in the Senate and Congress. And it's like, okay, where's this energy been for a long time? Strange. Yeah. Donald Trump claimed that at the time that he didn't know she was even going to do that. That was kind of interesting. Whether or not that's true or not, it's interesting no matter what. And it would suggest that Melania Trump, it strongly suggested to me at the time, and it continues to suggest to me, that Melania Trump was concerned about things Amanda Ungaro could say. Now, that doesn't mean she's concerned that Amanda Ungaro has proof or would come out with some proof that, like, Melania was introduced to Trump by Epstein. I'm going to get to what Amanda said about that in a minute, because she was, again, when she's incentivized to say some things,
she doesn't.
She doesn't. That's interesting. That's a check mark in the that feels somewhat honest to me box, because you never know with these situations. And I haven't had a chance to sit down with her in person and whatever. Obviously, she's in Brazil. It's like you don't know what to believe in these circles, no matter who it is. But she said, I said, when did you meet Melania Trump? And she said, on the plane. And I went, what? It's like, and she goes, no, Trump's plane. I was like, all right, you got to say that.
Yeah.
You can't say the plane when you just told me you got to the United States on the Lolita Express. I was like, did we get that? What the fuck? But anyway, so it was on Trump's plane, because when she was dating Paolo, they would hang out with Trump. They would go on his jet. She mentioned dinners at Cipriani. Where have we covered that, Joey Deep? I think we covered some dinners at Cipriani that happened on this show for sure. But, you know, she very specifically said that. And so she met Melania on the plane. And I said, when you were with Melania on the plane, at this time, Amanda's around 18, 19 years old. I said, did you ask her how she met Donald? And she said, no. She goes, but I was at some sort of cocktail reception in that time period with Trump and Paolo. And Paolo, in a way of like, I don't know, trying to brag to her, said to Donald, he goes, Donald, tell Amanda how you met Melania. And allegedly Trump said, oh, it was Paolo that introduced us. And Amanda said, I didn't believe that for a second. But that's what was said to her. And so that's what she reported. And that has been reported in the past, that it was Paolo Zampolli who introduced Melania to Donald, which would mean, if that's true, it was not Epstein himself, which would at least remove that as a potential scandalous event. It still makes you wonder why Melania came out and suddenly said something like that when Amanda started talking. So what other things could be there that Amanda could know? And when I kind of broached that topic with her, she didn't like give me salacious shit or like, oh, I know that this happened. Again, she was very much like, I don't know. There's another thing that she mentioned that we are going to keep off the record that, again, didn't involve Amanda making a clear claim as it pertains to anything related to Melania and Trump with Epstein at all. So, again, interesting. She did wonder, like, she mentioned when Melania first came to the United States, which was shortly before Amanda did. She was very well-to-do and put together. And what Amanda meant by that is she's like, models that came over here, they didn't wear all the highest end stuff and, you know, allegedly live in a nice place and stuff like that. You know, it's not like they looked homeless or anything. They're models, to be clear. But like the insinuation was that Melania, she went like this. That's what Amanda did.
Yeah.
Could be innocent, could not. She thought that was interesting. I want to continue the conversation with Amanda. This was like a good start. I have a lot more questions. I would imagine you guys are going to comment some questions down below, some open-ended questions you want. Again, as I said a few minutes ago, I haven't had a chance to sit with her face-to-face and you know.
Might have to go to Brazil.
Yeah, do the human lie detector thing and all that. There's a lot of weird shit. And there's some stuff I kept off record in there as it pertains to other things that I don't think are related in any way to certainly the Epstein case, but matters at hand here. But, you know, she's had an interesting, very interesting life and has definitely seen some things that maybe could be helpful to investigations, maybe could not. But I do want to say, and Amanda's obviously going to see this before I put it out, so she's hearing me say everything I'm telling you right now. Fan of the show, by the way, Joey Deef.
Fan of the show.
Yeah, I think she's a fan of Joey Deef. I think that's why she watches. Amanda.
Can you blame her?
But I couldn't blame her. But, you know, definitely, Amanda definitely has a bone to pick with Paolo. And I understand that. And so you wonder where maybe some bias could come in on that. But again, when she has a chance to put him dead to rights on the stuff that is the soup du jour of the moment that we would all eat up, she does not. And she's incentivized to. So just keep that in mind. But interesting conversation, and I'm sure we'll cover that some more moving forward. But I mentioned at the outset, my very good friend, longtime friend, one of my few friends in my industry, actually, I don't know a ton of people in this industry yet, is Danny Jones. Danny Jones has an amazing show down in Florida. I've been on it a few times with him as well, and he's actually coming up here to be on my show again sometime soon, so looking forward to that. But Danny loves touching the fucking boiling coffee until his finger burns a little bit. He loves getting down in the nitty-gritty with things, and he does some podcasts sometimes that I'm like, I can't believe you did that one. But he's got a serious set of balls on him. And so he had in this guy Juval Aviv, which actually we've talked about this before, but when we designed this studio, the theme was New York City. So do we have camera 5 on?
Cut this in.
All right, yeah, you can cut that in as well. But we have on the wall back here, and it's funny because this wall actually faces the Hudson River, so it faces Manhattan. But we have on the wall the New York City skyline, and that was like thematically what we were trying to do. So over here on the wall, there's these beautiful shots at the end of the movie Munich, made in 2005 by Spielberg, where Eric Bana and Jeffrey Rush's characters are standing on the Brooklyn side looking at the East River in 1970s New York with New York on the skyline. So we have a double shot of that moment in the film. And I say this because Juval Aviv is alleged to be Eric Bana in that movie. So a little bit of a, whoa, there it is. If you've never seen the movie Munich, it is a great movie, I do have to say, and it is based on true events. I think the opening scene says this is fictionalized or something. It's not. If you look at the history, read the book Rising Gill first by Ronan Bergman, and you'll understand that this movie, which is about, what is it, Operation Midnight Hammer, I think it was called. Can you double check that, Deef? But this film that they made in 2005, it is about the events of
Operation Wrath of God.
Operation Wrath of God. I'm sorry. Midnight Hammer was the Iran war thing, right? That was definitely, yeah, it was like last summer.
Yeah.
Right?
That was one
Operation
of the new ones.
Wrath of God.
Yeah.
But it is about the Israel's response to the 1972 terrorist attack at the Olympics, where Black September members associated with the Palestinian PLO kidnapped and then killed the Israeli athletes. I want to say it was like 9 athletes. I think it was 9 athletes that they killed at the time of the hostages. And so those games were in Munich, Germany, and as a result, Golda Meir, who was the prime minister at the time, allegedly authorized a Mossad assassin kill squad to go find all the organizers from Black September who were responsible for this and kill them, regardless of where they were. Allegedly, at the time, this is what they report, Mossad had a policy of not assassinating people in Europe and in ally countries. Not so sure if I believe that, but they did waive that, allegedly, for this mission. And so back in the 80s, a book comes out called Vengeance. And it's written, I can't remember if he did it under a pen name at the time, but it's an author, a writer who wrote it with Yuval Aviv, who may have been still under a pen name.
George Jones.
Right. Okay. Was that the pen name? Or was that the other writer?
No, that's just, it just says it's by George Jonas.
George Jonas.
No, yeah, he's a real guy, so he probably wrote it alongside him.
Right. So he writes this book where he describes this mission and what he did over a 3-year period. The book ends up becoming the movie Munich. There's a lot of controversy about Yuval Aviv, where he's been denied over the years. Mossad was like he was a janitor, didn't work for us, things like that. I don't think that's the case, because the book gets the details of what really happened on these various hits that they did in places like Rome, Paris, Lebanon. It seems to get them very accurately. And he wrote this back in the 80s. And so Yuval Aviv came, when he was done that mission, moved to America, to New York, and actually, and this is shown in the movie Munich, ran into problems where the Israelis were trying to get him back, and they were, they were watching his daughter when she would leave the apartment and stuff, and he flipped out about that. And so, they obviously, I don't remember what it was, but they came to some sort of understand. I do remember what it was now, but they came to, it's covered in Danny's podcast. They came to some sort of understanding, and then allegedly they stopped bothering him. And then he started a private detective company in America and started taking some serious contracts globally, but particularly for working with the United States government, which was part of the vetting process that Steven Spielberg did when he went to make the movie about whether or not Yuval Aviv was real. He was able to I believe, get access to like government documents that show Yuval Aviv's affiliation with United States intelligence on like a contract basis and listed as Israeli intelligence in doing that. So cue the comments on this one. Obviously, there's a lot going on there. But Danny Jones does this explosive podcast with Yuval. And I called Danny afterwards and I said, Danny, your second podcast with Yuval was absolutely amazing. It was early in the morning, so it took him a minute. He's like, what? I only do one pod. What are you talking about? I said, no. You did 2 podcasts. I said, the first one sucked. He's like, what are you talking about? And I said, Danny, you covered the entire Operation Wrath of God in like the first 10 minutes. And then had this amazing podcast on all the other stuff. You should have spent 3.5 hours on that to get him, I don't know, catch him in a lie, do something. But he's like, I didn't really want to talk about it. So hopefully Danny Jones gets Yuval back in there and they can really give that one a right and proper podcast on the actual Wrath of God mission and all the guys they went to kill. But the rest of the podcast went through a lot of the work that Yuval's done in his career with, what's the name of that company on his Wikipedia again? Infosec or something? It's his private investigation. Interfer International. And, I think it's probably a mixed bag. I think there's some places where he talks a big game and doesn't have the receipts. Maybe some other places where he really does have receipts and really did do things. I had looked into this guy actually like years ago because the movie Munich I think is a great movie. And I was just always curious about that backstory. And I do think he was on that team. Open to being wrong about that, but I do think he was on that Mossad team for sure. And then you look at like some of the work he did, and I already mentioned some affiliated with the United States government in the years after when that mission would have been. It would suggest this is someone who knows his way around and knows how to do some things. But Danny Jones, of course, broached the topic at hand of Jeffrey Epstein, the Epstein files. And Yuval was willing to talk about this to some extent. I'm trying to think because I talked with Danny off air, obviously, about this. So I don't want to say some of the other stuff. But what you saw on air was Yuval addressing some of this. And I want to start with the Could I Guess It clip. Mm-hmm. This is tier 1, top tier, prime, perfect fucking hosting from one Danny Jones. Let's let this play.
That evidence, we got a bunch of emails and stuff, and there was lots of redactions. They said they were only going to redact the victims, but they redacted way more than just the victims. They redacted like big names of like sheiks and oil executives and all.
Yes.
It's very interesting the people that they didn't redact and the people they did redact. If you really like read between the lines and look at it, but
of course,
like that's not the real evidence. The real evidence is on the hard drives because there's survivors, there's girls that were there that testified that he had rooms as big as this room right now that were filled with servers and computers and monitors that were recording all that footage that he had, and not only on the island but in New York, the Zora Ranch, everywhere.
On a plane,
camera.
The plane was rigged, and everywhere.
Where's all that footage?
I can't tell you.
Really?
Yeah.
Look at
Can
that.
I guess?
No, please don't. Not now. Don't guess now. So that's why I said the days.
Let me ask you this:
the day it will come out is important. Jones. It has to be the right time, the right day.
Let me ask you this. I'm sorry to put a legendary Mossad assassin on the hot seat, but if I was to guess, do you think I would guess right?
Probably. That's why we shouldn't talk about it right now.
All right. That's all.
Yeah. That's a wild clip, bro. That's a wild clip. Now, devil's advocate, we could be sitting here at home going, that guy, he's just trying to act like he knows something he doesn't. But like the way, and again, I know some context here also, off air, which I'm not saying, but like the way that he chained up on that and was like simultaneously friendly about it, but then also curt, like, let's move on this, you know, but then, ooh, God, I don't even know how to talk about that one. That just was wild to me. I want to hear what you guys think of that down below. Because obviously, and this is a very fair question, whenever you see any of these spooky people on podcasts, I've talked about it on my own podcast before with guys like Bustamante have been on here, even Kiriakou and stuff like that. You always have to ask the question, why the fuck are they on a podcast? Now, Kiriakou I've always viewed as different because he's a full-blown dissident and they threw him in prison. And some people still speculate, hey, once CIA, always CIA. I genuinely don't think he is at all. John's great. It would break my heart if he was, because like John is fucking electric and is very brave for some of the shit he says. Whereas like Andy, another friend of mine, I've always thought Andy Bustamante is still with CIA. In fact, I've said this before. I think Andy, if he took a polygraph and you asked him, and let's say he doesn't know how to cheat on a polygraph, okay? If he took a polygraph without knowing how to cheat and you asked him, do you still work for CIA? I think he would be able to say no and pass. And you say, well, why is that? Because I think it's a semantics question. There was one big tell. I don't know if I've ever said this, but there was one big tell that Andy had to me the first few times I ever had him in to record. And this is years ago in my parents' house. You know, my podcasts are extremely free-flowing. That's what we do. And when guests come on now, they know that. And even back then, like a lot of them knew that was my style because I'd discuss it on the phone. And some people, you know, they want more of a plan. And I'd just be like, don't worry about it. And they'd be a little nervous about it. Other people, they'd just go with it. To this day, some people still want the plan. We were getting a text earlier from someone who's like, what are we going to talk about? I'm like, I don't know. You're great. We'll have fun. And it just always works out. But with Andy, he was cool with that. He was one of the guys like, all right, dude, sounds good. But there was one topic that before episode 97, I remember in my car when I was driving him back from the airport to go record it. And then before episode 107, when he got over to the house, there was one topic that he was obsessed with talking about that he wanted me to ask him about. And I was like, actually, I'm very interested in that. So I did. And that was the movement of the intelligence apparatus from government to the private sector. And what he meant by that is there, especially under Trump term 1, but even well before that, there was a big move to where guys would come cut their teeth in CIA, be, you know, do all this important work, be sitting at their desk at Langley on a Friday, accept a job with fucking, I'll just insert the name of a company here, Lockheed on Friday afternoon, walk out of CIA, hand in their lanyard, walk back in Monday morning, and instead of making $89,000 at CIA, they're now making $689,000 at Lockheed. They're handed the same lanyard and taken to the same desk or one right next to it, fully read in, able to do everything they do, but now they are not listed as an employee of the CIA and therefore of the United States government. They are now listed as a private contractor hired by CIA, which, by the way, when you look at every public figure from president on down in the government, all their salaries, as far as I know, I don't know if it's all the way down, but like it's in the public domain. Like you can know what people make. Is that, am I saying that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty positive on that too.
All right. So people would be complaining if they found out like the director of CIA was being paid $9 million.
Right.
They'd be like, our taxpayer money's paying a guy what they're paying the starting fucking small forward on the Sixers? Like, well, maybe not LeBron, but actually LeBron's making less than that now with the Sixers.
You see he's going to take a helicopter to work every day?
He is taking a helicopter to work every day.
Have we not learned, people?
Don't do that, Joey D.
Well, just have we not learned?
I just need one title. I need one title for my Sixers before he goes.
Everyone stop doing that.
But yes, I don't love LeBron taking a helicopter every day.
Sorry to get us off topic.
But I forgot he's my small forward now. I'm very excited about that. But anyway, you know, people would not be happy about that. But when it's reported on the sheet that like X number of hundreds of millions of dollars went to, and it lists off a laundry list of stuff, private contracting, contracts for defense, contracts for whatever, you don't see that Y amount of that was used for this $9 million salary for that guy that worked. You see what I mean? It's like you get to hide it in the noise. And so Andy wanted to talk about this a lot, and part of the reason was because, he as a good employee of the United States government, or a good spokesman for them, is very worried about intelligence leaks and things like that. He doesn't like Edward Snowden and shit like that, which obviously he and I have disagreed with plenty in the past. He said a lot of that stuff comes out from the fact that there is such a boomerang relationship with the private sector, where guys now come in and then they get information and they walk out of the office with it. So that being said, that was a little tangent right there, but when you see all these guys, whether it be a CIA guy, a Mossad guy, or whatever, I'm thinking the same thing you guys do out there, and you're right to think it. It's like, all right, what are they doing here? Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.